Welcome to Women Winning Divorce. I am your host, Heather Quick. I am an attorney, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Florida Women's Law Group, the only divorce firm for women by women. I love thinking big, thinking outside the box, creating creative solutions for women, and empowering women to win in all aspects of their life. Our approach at Florida Women's Law Group is to provide women with a strategy to not only achieve their objectives, but win at life. I believe that what may show up as adversity is simply an opportunity to change and improve your life. In each episode, I sit down with innovative professionals and leaders who are focused on how you can be your best self before, during, and after divorce. In these conversations, we are looking at how women can win at life. I have the unique opportunity to meet women when they are at a transition period of life. But that is only the beginning to becoming your best self and winning at life on your terms. With our guests, we enjoy the opportunity to explore ways all women can win and enhance their life, no matter where they are in their journey. Because divorce is just a point in life, not the end and not what defines you, rather a catalyst for your growth. Welcome to today's episode of Women Winning Divorce. I'm Heather Quick, owner and attorney of Florida Women's Law Group. Today, I am being joined by Emily Kapit. Emily is a 3-time certified master resume writer, as well as an industry-leading career strategist and career resilience expert, and the founder of Refresh Your Step, LLC, a career advisory firm. Welcome to our show, Emily.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, I am so excited to hear all about this. This is fascinating what you do. So I know today we're going to discuss re-entering the workforce post-divorce, which is just really a great topic and so important because it doesn't have to be a negative thing. It can be just such an amazing opportunity for women.
Oh, absolutely.
And so tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are, because I just love your business.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm absolutely happy to tell you. So I started out actually with the expectation that I was going to go straight into broadcast journalism. That was my background initially. And so I started working out in NBC and ABC in Manhattan right out of school. And immediately realized, oh my gosh, this is a really toxic environment. I want to be somewhere less toxic. So then I started working for an investment bank. And in my brilliance of my early 20s, I didn't realize that would be more toxic. But however, you look back, you're like, that was not ideal. However, what I found in all of these experiences is that people were in these very challenging work situations and sometimes personal situations that they didn't know how to get out of. And professionally, there were career centers if you were still in school, undergrad or graduate level, and there were executive coaches, but there was no one in between, student and executive level. There was no career advisory support. This was early to mid 2000s. So I thought, let me be part of the solution, not the problem. So I went back to grad school. I got my master's, and partway through that, that investment bank I had been at filed for bankruptcy, and all of my old colleagues with whom I'd worked quite a bit, on their careers, on their resumes, because I knew how to do it, they were calling me saying, oh my God, now I'm actually in a difficult situation, help. So I ended up launching the firm about a year before I intended and have just been growing it ever since. Our initial intention was to focus more so on, mid-levels, young professionals, mid-levels, and wrapping in the resume piece, because from our perspective, the resume, and at that point, and certainly now LinkedIn, they are critical pieces in the process, knowing how to craft those documents, really align them with someone's job search goals and whatever's happening in their personal lives as well. But they have to be very heavily intertwined with, what is your job search strategy? What is your interview prep? What about networking? How do we need to amplify those, strategize around those in addition to the documents? So we began, putting together a process to weave those pieces together. We have been working with clients for 15 years, and I've expanded the team to include a wonderful team of writers, really highly certified writers. As you noted, I'm a triple certified master resume writer. So all of my writers are highly certified, very, very good at what they do. And then we also work with clients on obviously the documents and everything else related to career strategy.
That's great. I mean, what an amazing service. And I've got to tell you, like, to the level to which your business provides these services, I had no idea. that existed out there, which to me, that's positive. That's so great because people need that, at that
Absolutely.
kind of level for sure. Now, I want to start off simply by asking, like, why would someone choose to put their career on hold and stay at home?
I mean, as I just watched my daughter walk downstairs as you were asking that question, I think it was right in front of me. A lot of individuals choose to do so. They want to be home with their children, in that very full-time demanding job that it is to raise children, to run a home. And I understand that it is a tough role to be in.
It really is. And I do too. I've mostly been working all my life, took some time off after my second child was born. And it wasn't necessarily really what I was cut out to do. It was, it was hard. It's really hard,
Absolutely.
for sure. And I think that too many women get, discounted for doing that when it is so hard. And especially from my end at the divorce, when the husband's looking at him like, you need to go get a job. And it's like, but you don't really appreciate all that they did.
It's invisible work, right? Running a
Yeah.
household and being a parent, and especially in today's world when there's just so many demands on all of our lives,
Hmm.
especially with raising children, it is very challenging. And so, I mean, to any parent out there, and being one myself, like, I salute you, because it is a roller coaster.
It really is. And it's, you do get, we can talk about that later when we're talking about, the benefits of being in the workforce, even after being at home. But let's talk about, how do you begin that process of re-entering the workforce? Because from my perspective, we're going to see a lot of women and they're going to need to do that and or want to do it. But I think in general, it doesn't have to be a divorce, but many women listening could be like, what do I even do? How do I even start that? I
Oh,
haven't
that's
worked
such
in
a
so
great
long.
question. Yeah, I mean, we have clients come to us quite a bit. Some are going through divorce, so we've definitely had that
Yeah.
conversation. But for a number, it's, I've been home for X number of years, and now I'm ready to go back. I
Yeah.
want to do something. I want to do something on a part-time basis, a full-time basis, whatever it might be. I've just been out for a while, and so that conversation initially should be, okay, where am I? What am I looking to do? How do I get there? And start
Mhm.
to not look at this as this hugely overwhelming process so much as, how do I break this down into bite-sized chunks? And then who do I need to take with me along this journey to be a strategic partner in this process? And that doesn't necessarily have to include just me and my team. I mean, to know who is in your network, to know who is going to be supportive in this process and going to be essentially with you in that, navigating this journey. And that is, it's helpful to have friends who have done this in the past, who have gone back to work, friends
Mhm.
who have stayed in the workforce and can be helpful in terms of making introductions for you, and then being very thoughtful about how to leverage the rest of your network to get further introductions. So just recognizing who in your world can be a part of this journey as you're looking to re-enter the workforce. That's a really good starting point.
Um, Absolutely. And do you have any tips, like for our stay-at-home mom listeners, like on like they need to rebuild a resume or perhaps update one that is several years old?
I mean, very first thing to recognize is, when you have been at home, you have been doing a lot of the skill sets that any manager leverages in their own job. You are managing a household, you are project managing people and budgets and initiatives. You are very likely involved in extracurriculars and school programs. You are doing volunteer work. I see that almost uniformly. You are doing work that has skill sets that are highly transferable back to the workforce. And what I also see is, if someone was previously in the marketing world, they are leveraging those skills to do marketing for this PTA initiative or that other nonprofit initiative. They're leveraging those skill sets still, even if they're not getting paid for it, and they're staying on top of those skills a lot of times. So recognizing that, right? Even if they were an accountant before and now they're managing the accounts for the house and they're doing that kind of financial work, it's still relevant. So seeing the times and the opportunities where the skills you were using before, you're still using. And we have built plenty of documents, resumes, LinkedIn profiles that hone in on those. And they actually make a big difference in the interview process.
Yeah, I would bet so, because there are so many skills and sometimes it helps for somebody to pull that out of you, because like you said, but you're doing all of these things, and even through the volunteer work or the logistics of, getting the children, managing the books of the home, there's so much there, but sometimes you may not see it at first as how it transfers out there in the world.
Exactly. And having a conversation with someone to help pull that information out, to help you see past your own like self-limiting view is huge. And what I've seen very often, especially for women going through a divorce, I would say, but for people who are re-entering the workforce in general, they're in such a different mindset with everything that's going on, that to take a step back and look at themselves a bit more holistically and a bit more from the perspective of, wow, I have done some incredible work in the last several years, even if I wasn't getting paid for it, it really helps them to see themselves in a different light, which builds back up that ego that sometimes has essentially taken a hit.
Absolutely. And that is a perfect lead into my next question, because how do you recommend answering the interview question of, can you explain this gap in your resume?
Absolutely. And in that regard, it actually loops very well into a key part of the process, which is recognizing your key wins. So it's not just answering the question with, oh, I took some time off to be home with my family, which in and of itself is huge and a great win. But it's really honing in on, I took some time off to be home with my family. And in that time, I was able to leverage this skill set towards managing, a major budget. I was able to also oversee this project in terms of managing a major move and every step along the way. I've also been involved in extracurriculars. So in that time, I was, still focused on leveraging these key skills and was able to do so in opportunities allowed me to be highly successful, and will be able to transfer those wins back into this workforce.
And which is great. And I think helping women recognize that so that you can communicate that
Absolutely.
you have these skills, and they will communicate well to many job opportunities.
Absolutely.
Now, how can women who stayed at home keep current on industry trends?
Oh, that's such a good question. So if there's a specific industry that they're in, like again, let's say marketing or accounting, a couple key things to do is make sure you are still paying attention to the newsletters that are part of your industry. So making sure to read up on the industry news that's coming out. And then also, I would recommend, even if you haven't been super involved in LinkedIn, to be involved in LinkedIn, to look at the industry networks and groups that are on there and see what industry trends are coming out from them. And also going to networking events to the extent possible, so that you are very, very highly knowledgeable about what's going on within your industry, and that you are able to still speak about it.
Now, you mentioned twice now LinkedIn. So I just really want to follow up, because I'm guessing that it could be a really good resource to stay connected and within your industry.
100%. So a lot of times parents who've been home for a while, they are either not on LinkedIn at all, or they're bare minimum on LinkedIn. And so we're here to help craft the content that will, help set them apart on LinkedIn, satisfy the algorithm. That's a whole different side of the conversation. But to at least be on there and part of industry networking groups, and seeing who's posting about what, also seeing who are major players in your particular space, potentially who are geographically around you, making sure to be participating in LinkedIn in that regard, so that you are comfortable with LinkedIn, you have a presence on LinkedIn, and don't make it any harder than it really, really needs to be. It is truly a wonderful resource. It can be overwhelming if you haven't been on it. Start small with just getting acclimated with that news feed, seeing who's posting, seeing what the industry groups are that are on there relevant to your sector. And you can be a little bit of a, sort of the audience member for a minute, just to get sort of acclimated to it. But then, start to be part of those conversations as you feel comfortable. You might have to put yourself out there a little bit to be commenting, to be just part of those discussions, but start getting used to that over time. And that also sets you apart as getting comfortable again with having those conversations in real life. So LinkedIn is absolutely a wonderful resource. It's just a matter of pulling back the curtain on how it works,
right?
Making sure there's a presence on there in terms of your profile, and then starting to be active on that news feed, certainly.
That's great, because that's something, as you're beginning this conversation, you can start to do right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Without even, maybe you're like, maybe I don't want to do it just now, but I know it's coming,
Yes.
in the next 6 months or so. It's a good way to begin that process.
Oh, absolutely. I just had a conversation with someone this morning who had also gone through a divorce, and we were talking about, just here's how you can, one step in front of the other, get used to being on LinkedIn and getting acclimated again to it. Very, very like sort of tiptoeing in so it doesn't feel so overwhelming, but getting comfortable with it pretty quickly.
That is awesome. Well, now is the perfect time for our first break, but I do have still so many more questions. But listeners, we would so appreciate if you left us a review so that other women going through the divorce process can find our show and join our community. And we will be right back with Emily Kapit. All right, so we are back from our break. And again, today I'm joined by Emily Kapit, and she is giving us some career tips and tricks. And we had such a great conversation in the first segment. So if you missed it, please go back and listen. It's wonderful stuff. But I didn't get to ask all my questions. And one of the big ones, and I think our listeners would be really interested in, is how do you transition from being at home to being back in the office full time?
Okay, so that definitely takes some time and logistics work and making sure you've got that foundation. Not everybody's going to be different as far as who are their resources around, if they've got parents or other family members who can jump in, and being thoughtful about the scheduling piece and making sure all of that's taken care of. And I know for so many parents out there, that is a daily piece of like what they're focused on. But as you're going back into the workforce, transitioning from home, it's very much it's a mind swap, right? About having to be back in the office. What does that look like? And in today's world, we're talking post-pandemic world, it's also being thoughtful about, and this is part of the job search process. Do you want to be in an office full time? Do you want to be home full time, but in a remote role? Or do you want something hybrid? And also thinking through that piece and making sure that that is a key aspect of your job search, because then that's going to help you really fine tune where are the roles that I want to be looking at? What are the parameters around my search? And anything you can do to put yourself back in the driver's seat is huge as you're making a transition such as this, right? So if you can say a boundary around my life is going to be, I want a job that is hybrid. I will have no more than 2 days in the office. That is a parameter around my search that I will absolutely not bend from. Really helps to pull out the roles that truly are not a right fit for you. And that's going to help just smooth things over with whatever transition points you need to make regarding going back to work and making sure things keep moving at home. And I know that that can play into, especially women going through a divorce. I've had this conversation before. Hey, I'm looking to go back into the job world. I have 50-50 custody. Let me think about how that's going to play into my search as well. And the days that they would be in the office and how that works with their custody share.
And so this made me think of this, and I think you can probably comment on it. So right now, so say you have those boundaries, or, that you're like, this is the role I want, only the 2 days in the office, just like your example, the hybrid. How is the job market? I would imagine some of our listeners might be like, can I be that picky? Can I be that specific on those kind of terms?
I mean, that is such a good question. The job market in general, and it depends so much on the sector. The job market in general it's fluctuating, right?
Right.
It is just, it's up and down. It's this, it's that. It's very, very challenging in that regard to kind of like say, overall, this is what the job market looks like. But there are, and it's also regional. There are certain regions like the Northeast, they want everybody back in the office. And the Northwest they're much more likely to go remote, right? So you've got that region specific component to it. You can still be picky. And I recommend still being picky, right? Okay. Because to the extent possible, like, look, if you're a doctor and you have to be in the emergency room because you're an emergency room doctor, or you're, an OB and you're delivering babies, can't do that remotely. They haven't figured out that technology.
Right.
But for a lot of other roles, IT, marketing, a lot of legal-based roles, finance, a lot of these positions are allowing for a lot more flexibility at this point. And you saw in the pandemic, everybody was home, right? And in a year or so past the pandemic, we're talking 2020, 22-ish, as we're all coming out of it, there was a bigger push to be back in the office. And now it's okay. Companies are realizing that people generally want something more hybrid to the extent possible. And they're responding to that in a much more, I would say, fluid way, where they're saying, okay, if it's the right fit and we can make this work, hybrid works as well. And they're seeing it as a financial boon to them because they need less office space. So recognize certainly what your industry is, where you are regionally, and how that plays into everything. But if you're looking for a role that the demand is to be back in the office or whatnot, in general, the markets are decent. I think the outlook is good for 2024 as we're going back, sort of back into the rest of 2023. Things will start to sort of wind down here as we're heading, into the last part of 2023. But as you're gearing up for 2024, the markets actually should be getting better. Does not take into consideration macroeconomic impact of things happening around the world. But generally speaking, it should be a good market depending on your industry.
And I think I think that's good news. And as, an employer and obviously within the legal field, I have found that obviously when it's the right fit, the right person, but our employees really are so efficient at home. And so we definitely make that a part of our offer and, encourage it for them who want it. And so many of them really do.
Many of them really do. They are more efficient at home. They're more productive. They're also, I think, more fulfilled because they have more balance. And when you have a team member who is more balanced in their lives, they know they have flexibility, they know they're being supported, they become, not necessarily a team member for life, but they're a devoted team member while they're working with your organization. And that is worth its weight in everything.
I agree. And it's been interesting because that's the way we were here, right? The pandemic forced it, like everybody. And what we learned from it is, wow, a lot more employees can really do this. And I think, like you said, feel fulfilled, feel as, I don't know if it's an expectation as much now. I think, like you said, it depends on your region and the areas.
Correct.
But I think people are more comfortable saying this is what I want.
Yeah.
Because so many of the businesses have created that opportunity. And
absolutely. What we found was right at the beginning of the pandemic, all these people went home. And a lot of the parents who were in the more executive level positions who'd never been home before were all of a sudden like, oh my God, it is so difficult to be in the office. Whereas when I'm home, I can be that much more. There was the first time that these executives were able to feel that. And then it was hard with the kids home. But once the kids started going back to school and the companies hadn't asked for people to go back yet, they're like, again, all these executives, a lot of them men, but some of them obviously women, but parents in general as well, were like, oh my God, I am so productive here. I am so capable of getting my job done in the middle of making dinner and cleaning the house and throwing a load of laundry in and running to get my kids. I don't need to be in an office 8 to 6 every day to get my job done anymore. And it was a lot of times the executives who started to recognize, I like this better for me. I want this to trickle down to the rest of the company.
Yeah, I think that's good, which puts, those individuals, and, we're talking today about women going back, like there's just more options that now for that kind of work.
Absolutely.
Now, do you see a pattern in the types of women that seek your services?
It's a great question. In general, I see a pattern in the sense that these are women who are they're hitting a wall in some form or fashion, right? And they're ready to do the work to get like their careers back on path. So for women who are in the workforce, they're hitting a wall, whether it's, their manager is toxic and they're ready to get out, or their division or their whole company was just sold, and so they're looking at redundancies, right? They're worried about being redundant. There's major issues going on at the company. There's major issues in the sector, something along those lines, or they're just ready and waiting to move on to the next best thing. But there's some sort of crisis happening in their professional lives, sometimes their personal lives, pushing them to make a move, and they want to have support to make those moves strategically, and to make those moves with the goal in mind of, I want to move into this kind of position, and I want to do it in such a way where I'm taking advantage of my network, and what do these documents need to look like these days, and how am I going to make this in a very tactical way.
Now, do you have any programs that you recommend for our listeners ahead of re-entering the workforce?
Oh, that's a great question. It's very, very person specific. For certain people, and again, I happened to have this conversation earlier this morning with someone who's in the same boat. For some people, it's, I need to re-engage with my skill set. And so there can be courses and certifications that they can do through LinkedIn Learning, through Coursera. There are countless universities now offering e-certifications that are wonderful, wonderful to do, just to have that more recent professional development that you can integrate into the documents, but you can also utilize for networking. Absolutely wonderful opportunities there. Those are always a really great step to take before you re-enter the workforce. Obviously, I do suggest that people work with a team such as mine, going through what we call it the Kapitalize process. My last name is Kapit, so go with it. But it helps people, regardless of what their challenges are, especially if they're about to go back into the workforce, to take a step back, take stock of, this is where I am, this is what's going on, this was my background, this is what I'm looking to do next. Here's how I need to get there. I need to get my documents in order, my resume, my cover letter, my LinkedIn, for some people, my bio, getting those in order, but really taking stock of, what is my record of achievement from earlier in my career, through what I've been doing more recently. If I was taking some time off to be home, what have I been doing and doing well? Again, what's that record of achievement? Those have to be integrated into the documents, but they also need to be embraced and understood to be discussed in a conversation. So to be getting used to having those conversations again, to do some network road mapping, to understand who's in my network, who do I need to be talking to, how do I need to connect with them, what are my end goals with having these conversations. So going through these steps to think about the documents, the goals with the what kind of role someone wants to be in, what is that record of achievement that you need to be thinking about, what are those networking opportunities that you have, having those elements in place and breaking it down so it doesn't feel overwhelming. That's what you can do ahead of re-entering the workforce, to really be that much more prepared. And it's not just throwing everything against a wall so much as, I've got this in order, that in order. I'm having these conversations within my network. I'm leveraging those network conversations to have more conversations. And I'm not just applying online. And this is a really critical step, I want to say, learning that it's not about the number of applications you get out. So not applying to 50 jobs a day so much as a qualitative job search, going through your network, going through your contacts, reaching out to people and leveraging those connections to have informational discussions. And also, of course, when the time comes, real interviews, to actually find your way into a new role. When people get stuck in this, I have to apply to all of these jobs constantly, it's very fruitless. Whereas when it's a more qualitative job search, it's less roles, but taking more time to get your documents to a person, to have a conversation with the person. It's more work per opportunity, but much more fruitful.
Right. So it's working smarter is in
correct.
Potentially, like you said, a better quality and a better fit. So it's probably most definitely worth that time and effort.
100%. Absolutely.
All right. Well, let us take another short break and we will be right back. And listeners, if you are enjoying our shows and guests, we would ask that you would leave us a review, and that will help other women find our show, and we will be right back. All right, we are back from our last break. And again, today I'm joined by Emily Kapit, and we've been discussing re-entering the workforce post-divorce. So I have this conversation is so fascinating just because, I don't know, I see so many women who are overwhelmed and don't really know what to do. And
these conversations are so important for them, but also I think, like we talked about in the earlier segments, for maybe someone who's feeling stuck at their job or possibly a toxic environment where they're looking for something more, but they know they need some help to make that change.
So in that regard, it's similar process that we were talking about right before the break, but the difference is, and I think this is applicable to everybody, knowing, like recognizing I'm ready for a change. I'm ready to make this difference in my life. I just need the right kind of resources to get me there. And when you mentally like recognize this is a need and I'm going to make these changes, I just need these resources, you start to see that light at the end of the tunnel. And the steps that you take along the way help that light to grow bigger because you're getting closer to the goal. And so again, taking that step back, recognizing here's what I'm looking to do. Here's the goal I'm looking to transition. I want a more challenging role for myself where I'm getting paid what I should be getting paid. I want a more work-life balance. You know, some people are looking for that. They're just looking to like have a little bit more balance in their lives. They want to get out of a toxic situation. It's taking that step back and saying, okay, this is the goal I have for myself right now. This is the great work that I have done, because that, again, that has to be integrated into the documents, but it's such a critical part of the conversations that people are having. It's part of negotiation discussions. That record of achievement and taking the time to think through what have I done? How have I done it? What's been the outcome? That is like the nexus point to all work that career strategists do. And so taking the time to think through that. Now we have part of our process is understanding that and gathering that out from clients, but really understanding the importance of that and seeing that for yourself, it builds up that ego. It prepares you for conversations. It prepares you for negotiation discussions. It's huge. So then also taking that time to think through your network. And when you break it down, I'm not saying you need to spend hours a day doing this kind of work. Honestly, 15 to 20 minutes a day of thinking through what are the target roles that I'm thinking about? Who's in my network? Who would write me recommendations on LinkedIn? How do I go about and getting that information? Who's going to make introductions for me? What are my target companies? Just breaking this down into bite-sized chunks makes it doable and then starts to clarify those paths forward so that you're actually moving somewhere, again, towards that light, towards that change, but you're not doing it where you're like overwhelmed and spending, you know, all hours of the day and night. You really break it down. It makes it much more doable.
Now let's talk about certain positions. Like if you would recommend certain positions that are best for someone who hasn't been working for several years.
What I see very often for someone who hasn't been working for several years is and they're a parent, to actually see what kinds of opportunities are possible actually at the kids' schools. I see that as a transition point very often, where someone will say, okay, I used to do marketing or accounting or technology work, fill in the blank, back in the day. I haven't done that. Let me check in with my kids' school and see what their needs are. And sometimes you're doing this a little bit more on a hourly rate or a consulting rate, or you want to get away from the volunteer rate, but
right.
but doing something. And then you start leveraging that as, okay, I'm doing this work, and then let me take some of the great work I'm doing here and parlay that into bigger roles, or, you know, bigger roles outside of the school. But for very often I see that happening, you know, working at the kids' school is a great starting point. Another thing that I would actually say is, and I mentioned this very briefly in regards to school, but in general, a lot of women will start a consulting practice of their own. I actually just saw a friend do this in the hour before when I was getting ready for our conversation. She announced that she was starting her own marketing consulting business. She had a baby about a year ago. She was taking some time off. Now she's going to do some marketing and consulting work, but this is her own thing. And so, you know, you have to put a little bit more, I would say, legwork into this starting out, because you need to have your online presence. You need to start out with like some clients, even if you're just doing it on a volunteer basis at that point as well. But like, you want to start out with some client work that you can speak to. And then again, you can parlay that very quickly into bigger and bigger work. But that's a great way to get started back in the workforce. You know, just starting small and something that is manageable, and then growing it from there.
Yeah, I love that idea. And then you're, you know, doing your own thing, which depending on how successful you are, the idea of the flexibility and more free time doesn't always exist, but it's on your terms and you can manage that.
Right. And especially when you're going through such a big transition, anything that you can manage on your own terms, it's just a huge win right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm going to ask you this. Do you see that women are more reluctant to counteroffer a salary or ask for a raise than men?
Yes, I do see that. And I think that person by person, woman by woman, if we can change that, that would be huge, right? Because we are so dynamic, we are so powerful, and yet we forget that. And so, we're really good at negotiations with our kids because they're constantly trying to negotiate with us, right?
Yes.
We forget when the tables are turned and we're having to negotiate with someone who has the purse strings at that point. We get a little frightened and we don't want to be told no. We don't want to be we don't want the offer pulled back or anything like that, which so rarely happens. It's not something to be super concerned about. What I like to tell women, all clients, but especially women, is know your worth.
Yes.
Genuinely know your worth. And when you have and can embrace your record of achievement, I have been impactful in all of these ways. I am successful. I am absolutely the person that you need for this role. Have that mindset going in, but also be strategic. Know that that usually what you're being offered this is our package, this is what we're offering you. The expectation is that you're going to come back and negotiate. Sure, it makes it easier on the HR person if you don't. That's everybody's dream. Just sign the dotted line. Let's get you started.
Right.
The expectation is that you're going to negotiate. So let's get you prepared to do so, and to do so in a smart way, right? So what we talk to our clients about is, okay, you are going into negotiation. What information do we have? Let's start with what we know. The range was, A to B. Let's say the range was 125 to 145, annual, and they offered you 127. Well, then you get to go on with, look, I appreciate the offer. I'm really excited about working here. The range I know what the range is. I think I fit very, very nicely into this range. Given our discussions on A, B, and C, and how I'd be such a great fit, helping you solve those immediate challenges, and my strengths in X, Y, and Z. Let's talk about how we can get this compensation number closer to 145. So you have set an expectation there. You have said to them, I know your range is between this and this, right? And our discussions have, and I'm reminding you of this, our discussions have let you know I would be amazing solving this problem and that problem. My strengths here. We talked about this. So what can we do? You are very, very thoughtful using what can we do to then get this number up to the higher end of that range. And when you say it as what can we do, the expectation is that number will come up. It's not, can you raise the number? It's not a yes, no. Avoid yes, no in this conversation. Rather, it's what can we do to get up to this number? And the expectation is they will raise it. And that usually will get you closer to where you want. Now, if they come back and they say, well, what is the number that you're looking for? Strategically, you can give the answer like higher than what you're actually expecting to get. And by doing so, you are able to, when you give a higher number, like if you say you give 145, you're actually expecting them to give 140 and you're super good with that. Go up, and then they need you closer to the middle. So just being very, very mindful of that strategy as well. But the biggest thing I can say is set the expectation, go in with information that you already have regarding what their numbers are, the conversations you've had and how you've already been discuss how you'd be a good fit, and then say, what can we do to get higher up? And when you have that strategy in mind, it really unlocks the path to negotiating better.
I love that. I love that. I know that it's going to be huge for so many of our listeners. Yeah. Now I've heard that you're working on your book, and I would love it if you can share with me and our listeners a little sneak peek.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much. I have been working on the book. I mean, in the interest of being fully transparent, as a parent running a full-time business, I don't have as much time to work on the book as I would like. But in the time that I do have to work on it, it is taking our capitalized process that our clients have found so much success with and putting it in a book and workbook form so that clients have more access to the work that we do. So bringing that to, the wider masses, essentially. So it is helping the clients to understand, obviously, the importance of that record of achievement piece and seeing the critical element tied to that, helping them to take that step back and understand, what have I done? How have I done it? What's been the outcome, with clear examples, understanding the importance of a targeted job search and breaking it down into what we call a funnel. So, at the top, it's sort of a funnel going this way: targeted industries, companies within those industries, targeted people, and then how to reach out to key people so that you can have a much more qualitative connections-based job search, as opposed to just papering the world digitally with your resume. How to go about crafting those resumes so they're more achievement focused, what that looks like, translating that over to LinkedIn, pulling back the curtain more on LinkedIn so that the resume and the LinkedIn can work in tandem without being redundant, why that's important, so on and so forth. So it's really helping people to pull that capitalized process out, and that they can have it, at their fingertips with a workbook component tied to it.
Oh, that is very exciting. So I know we will be very excited to see it come out, and can't wait, and we'll share it with our clients for sure. Now, let me ask you this. Okay. Social media everywhere, and everything nowadays is kind of, it gets checked. Now, are employers looking at potential employee social feeds?
They absolutely are. They 100% are. And I will tell you that very often, I mean, almost exclusively, we will Google our clients. We will look you up on social media because I want to see what they can see. And this let's take LinkedIn off the table. So let's say we're talking about Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Those are the four, which is, TikTok is just, let's just not with TikTok, but to be blunt. But that's where people are posting. And my recommendation is, if I can see what you did last weekend and your pictures of it, and it's not, it's NSFW, it's not suitable for work, you need to have your security settings on high. Okay.
Got it.
I need to not see it, because I have seen, I mean, I can tell you some stories, and I'll tell you one real quick. I once had a client, senior IT executive, that I Googled him because he had a less common name. So it's easy with a less common name. I found his mugshots.
Oh my.
I did. I found his mugshots. And I had to say to him, listen, I found this, whatever the story is, stuff happens. I get it. We need to be thoughtful about how we're going to approach pushing that, because it was like a first page Google result type thing.
Wow.
We brought in a business development team that helped them essentially push that to a second page of Google, so it wasn't as obvious. But I said, but you also need to talk to me, and we came up with a strategy for how to handle that in conversation. So if I can see these things, anyone can see these things, right? So really making sure to be thoughtful about what's out there about you, but also having your security settings on very, very high, so that only the people that you want to see whatever you're doing in your off time, you live the life that you want to live, have at it. But just know that that can come back to bite you in the butt in an interview, in a job search. So being thoughtful and strategic about that.
Right. Because, and I'm not an HR attorney at all. I don't even know what I don't know about it, but I know a little, right? I don't want to get me in trouble, but there's a lot of questions you can't ask. So
that's right.
I think if you don't want, I mean, they're still not going to ask you about it, but they're going to know, right? They're going to know what is going on with your life if, it's out there for everybody to see.
Well, and you also have to be very mindful of, and I realize the landmines I'm walking into, but I'm doing this on purpose. This is a divided world right now, right? So if you are out there and you are protesting with this group or that group, or you're posting, you love this presidential candidate and you loathe this presidential candidate, you are essentially asking for half of the country to be mad at you. right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
I'm just saying, be thoughtful about that. And I would be putting those security settings on high. If you want to send pictures around to your people, then do that. Just don't put it on social media. Just putting that out there, because it can bite you in the butt.
Right. And if you're looking for a job, you want one, you need to eliminate all of those types of distractions that
100%.
are going to stand in the way of you really, getting that opportunity. Not like you said, it's not that that's right or wrong. It's just the way it is. So why leave it out there to become an issue?
Absolutely agreed. And you don't want me finding things about you on social media, because it's an awkward conversation you don't want to have.
Absolutely. Now, lastly, Emily, before we go, can you impart on our listeners what you've learned about empowering women and women reaching their goals throughout your career?
I will tell you this, and I'm going to pull from a quote that I love. I don't care if it's overused. Hurt people, and healed people, heal people. And so if you surround yourself with women who are ready to help you, they've helped themselves, they are here to help you, you can empower yourself if you have women around you who are ready to empower you to make those strategic moves in your life, who are there to help you, who are there to support you, who recognize and can objectively hold your hand and pull you back from like making poor decisions. Surround yourself with the women and generally the people in your life who are there to help you and support you as you're making and navigating whatever's coming down your path.
Well, that's awesome. I so appreciate that. And that is a great quote for our show. Well, we've reached the end. So sad to say goodbye, because this has been great information, Emily. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And for our listeners, you can find her at refreshyourstep.com. And of course, Emily's information will be linked below in the episode description. So thank you again. If you or someone you know is going through divorce or is thinking about a divorce, of course, reach out to us at floridawomensLawGroup.com or join our Facebook group, Women Winning Divorce, where we're having positive discussions among women who are starting over in their life. The link will be below in the episode description. Thank you for listening, and please leave us a review so that others can find our content. Thank you. From being served to preparing for trial, Divorce 101 will prepare you end to end for the divorce process. I'm Heather Quick, attorney and CEO of Florida Women's Law Group. Join us over the next 6 weeks to feel empowered and educated about a complex and often challenging legal process. Our online course is designed to provide an overview of what to expect, what to prepare for, and offer guidance you may need to succeed and win at life. Over 6 weeks of video and additional resources, we are confident that you will finish our course feeling inspired and educated. Find out more at floridawomensLawGroup.com/divorce-101 or call us at 904-567-0121. Thank you for listening, and please leave us a review so that others can find our content. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Women Winning Divorce. My goal is to elevate your life and the way you are thinking so that you are best equipped to win at life. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe so you automatically get my new shows every week. And I would love to hear from you personally. Come join the conversation on social and join our Facebook group, Women Winning Divorce. We welcome your comments and suggestions. We want to bring you content that helps move your life forward. Women Winning Divorce is the place for an elevated conversation on how women can thrive during times of adversity in order to live their best life.